I want to thank all of you for having me here today and talking to you a little bit about what our company went through. I do appreciate this opportunity to come and share this with you. I don't think I need to go through personal background. He did a great job. Thank you, Tony. What I'm going to talk about is peaks and valleys. Most entrepreneurs, as all of you are, see the peaks. You're up on top of a mountain, and I relate to that because I'm a sheep hunter. You're on top of a mountain and you're seeing the next peak, and the next peak, and the next peak. But what you sometimes forget is what it takes to get to that next peak. You have to go down the mountain to the valley and back up the other side. And it's what happens in these valleys that sometimes will make or break the companies that you start. I began with an idea and it became something else. That's Pablo Picasso. His paintings reflected, I think, that he was a little nuts, but that's a great quote. Most entrepreneurs see from one peak to the next. You are the visionaries, creating new companies. As I just explained, however, you have to go down into those valleys, and that's where you come into problems. The ideas that you create that become the new businesses of tomorrow will change unless you manage what happens in those valleys. Right people need to be in the right seat on the bus. Sometimes you have a lot of wonderful people working for you that may not be in the position that they should be. Maybe they shouldn't even be working for your company. And if you recognize that, the first inkling that you have that maybe that person is not the right person for that seat, be quick to fire. Be slow to hire, make sure that you know who you're hiring, but be quick to fire. Or move them to a position that is more suited for their skills and their abilities. Companies have stages of growth, and that's and what works in the beginning for you may not work halfway through the growth of your company. It may not work at the peak of your company. You need to recognize the changes and the signals that are happening within your management and the ideology of your company to make sure you're managing those things to your best of potential. My philosophy is I only do what I personally can do. I make sure that I surround myself with people better than me to do things that I can't do. And don't be afraid of that. I know that a lot of management people are. They don't want to hire people under them that they feel, well, maybe they're going to show me up and I'm going to lose my job. If that person has that type of attitude, they're in the wrong seat. Make sure your management is hiring people better than they are, because they need to only be doing the things that only they can do. We came down into a new valley and needed a different way to do business, and this was probably in about 2000. We were still running a lot of our departments the way we were back in 1971 when the company was first started by Mark and his first wife. These things were not working. We had brute force, like putting a round peg in a square hole. It's like we will force these things to work because that's all we knew. Well, we decided to take a step back and look at the company as a whole and make some changes. We had to. We hadn't changed our core product. We were a phone book company. We put out the best phone books in any competing market that we were in, going up against Dex, Yellow Book, some of the big boys. But we had problems, some big problems. We went from a mom and pop shop to probably over 1,000 employees and hadn't made the correct changes that we needed to. So as you can imagine, there were quite a bit of problems that were going on. We knew our idea would not change, but our practices had to. We put our management people, our VPs, our directors, our department heads, directors of sales, I would call them, through an extensive training course. Are there any pilots in the room here? Then you're going to know what I'm talking about. We hired a group called Afterburners. And these folks were a group of fighter pilots, most of them still active in the military today, that would go on tour and go into different companies and help them recognize trouble spots. Pilots have what they call a checklist. When you get into the cockpit, you check off certain things, am I right? To make sure that you're doing all these things correctly, because if you don't, you're going to fall out of the sky, which you don't want to do if you're up there flying. They came in and put us through a pretty extensive course. They made us fighter pilots. If you can imagine a bunch of salespeople, management people, never flown besides my husband. He's flown, been a pilot, or still is. Going to do a mission as though we were fighter pilots, going to go over and destroy Dexnia. Okay, that's what we named our target. So as we're sitting there planning, we broke up into little groups, and we had our helmets on, and they had air raids, and we'd have to go under the desk and make sure we took our planning things with us, because we had secret people that were coming through the tables, taking anything that was left on the tables, which were our plans to go destroy Dexnia. Now, fighter pilots sometimes only have maybe an hour to prepare their mission, maybe sometimes only 20 minutes, but they all need to be on the same page. And that was the thing that we were trying to get across to our management, because we had sales, which I ran, and we were the prima donnas, and everything should revolve around us. Forget finance, forget operation, it's us, it's about us. Finance thought they were the prima donnas. It's like, no, you better stick to your budgets or else. And operations just didn't like any of us, because, you know, it just didn't fit into their plans. So here we all are in these groups, and a lot of personalities, trying to figure out how to go and destroy Dexnia. Well, my group, needless to say, planned to let one of our pilots be a kamikaze and just die. He needed to sacrifice for the team. A few others had some strange things, but needless to say, none of us really actually made it to our target. And the reason why is because we were not working together. We all had our own agenda. They couldn't believe that we actually would plan in to have one of our people sacrifice for the team, go and die by flying over this missile that could come and shoot him out of the air. But it's like, but it made perfect sense to us, because if he gets killed, we can get him. So it was a great lesson to go through that. Even though it had nothing to do with Yellow Pages, it had a lot to do with teamwork. Because what happens after a mission, when they go out, doesn't matter if it's a low man on the totem post, a new recruit, fighter pilot, or one of their generals. They go into a room and they have what they call a debriefing, a nameless ranking debriefing. They actually take their stripes off, their names off, and they go into a room. And they discuss what had just happened. So if there was something that general did wrong during their mission, he's called on the carpet. And the reason they do that is because if there's a newbie in that room and he sees the general making that mistake, when he's out the next time, he feels like he can make that mistake. And we can't afford to lose any aircraft or any human life. And so they call him on the carpet. It was another principle we learned from this group. So we started having what we call debriefings too, where we would get into the room with all of us, pull our stripes off, and we'd talk about things, having a common agenda instead of different agendas for the different departments. In our sales force, we did the same things. I told the salespeople, when you're with your manager outside a certain door. You're to show them respect and do the things that you need to. But if you need to have a debriefing with your manager, you go in, you close the door, and you tell them, I need to have a debriefing with them, and talk about what's going on in the canvas. Because a lot of times, most of the great ideas come from the people under you, and you need to listen to them. After we went through this exercise, and it took probably a good 3 months to go through all the things that they put us through, we actually learned a lot about our company and the way that we were doing business. We started what we call open door policy, and we opened up the books to people. I know there were many nights that Mark and I would be walking around the block, and at the time our block was a 3-mile stretch, at 2 or 3 in the morning wondering how we were going to make payroll. These are things that you may come up against in opening your own companies, and you need to know how to fix those problems before they happen. We opened up our books and showed the entire company, right down to the maintenance person, exactly where we stood with everything. Paper clips. Come September, our stationery and supplies budget would go through the roof every year. We weren't paying attention to it because we personally didn't deal with it. But once we opened the books and started looking at things, it's like, why does our supplies spike so heavily during September? Back to school. You hit the nail on the head. We were the company's best office supply because everybody had put their order in. It's like, well, Mom and Pop, they're here. They're going to let us buy this stuff for our kids. And they'd order notebooks and pencils and whatever they needed for their kids to go back to school, which, okay, what's done is done. But when we can't pay you people, there's a problem. So there was something that we found once we opened it up and let everybody see what was going on, because they started watching. They started taking better care of their departments. We at one time probably were not the most financially stable company. However, we'd been in business when we sold 37 years. At this time when we started this process, it had been 30 years. We didn't have a line of credit. Everything that we did was done on cash flow, on what sales brought in the door. So when we opened these books and started seeing what was really going on, kind of made me upset. It's like, we're out there busting our chops trying to bring these dollars in, and you guys are wasting them. This needs to stop. But let's talk about it. What can we do to stop these problems that are in our company? Well, another thing we didn't know, and we started with our production side, is how much it really costs to produce a phone book. I mean, we knew that we brought X amount of dollars in for a certain book. Yay, we hit goal. We knew we sent it to the printer and it cost so much money to print it. But what we didn't know was the true cost of every item. How many times did a contract touch somebody else's hand, and how much did that actually cost? So when we dug into that, we realized that there was a lot of unnecessary procedures that we were doing that didn't need to be done. So if it cost $2 to enter a contract into a system, and that contract was touched another 5 times by somebody else, pretty much doing the same thing, times that by, we would write probably at that time 3,500 contracts a week. Times that over a year process. That's quite a bit of money that was being wasted. So we knew we had to make some changes there. It was unfortunate that there were some employees that lost their jobs, but it was necessary for the health of the company. we put the right people in the right seat on the bus. And this was the chore that we gave our department's head, is look at your employees. We want the best of the best, the ones that are better than you, that can make those decisions and bring the things to light that are happening, because you can't be everywhere at the same time watching your people. So they made the changes in production that needed. There's a book out there by Jim Collins, and that's another book we read during this period of time, and maybe a lot of you have read this book, From Good to Great. And if you haven't, I recommend that you get it and read it. It's a phenomenal book. And we learned a lot from it. Between Afterburners and our Good to Great, our company changed and did a complete, 160? 180, there you go. Well, maybe we only did a 160, I don't know. But we did make the necessary changes to production that we needed to get it running smoothly. We in sales started taking a more active interest in what we were actually bringing in the front door. Because if there's a missing zip code, or maybe there's a comma in a name where it shouldn't be, these are things that those production people had to fix. So us great divas of sales really got spanked, so to speak. So we started looking at our that we were sending in. They were pretty messy. I don't know how these folks could even read some of our salespeople's contracts that they sent in the door. But that all cost money to try and read that stuff, decipher what they had written down, because in the long run, if you don't get the right thing in the book, your customer is upset and he's not going to pay you. Regardless of that book may be on the street for a year and it may have the right phone number, but if you put something in his ad that is not supposed to be there, he's not going to pay. So we started looking at our sales people. One of the things that we did was hire by the masses and kick them out in their you-know-whatas. And it worked in the beginning. We had a 3-day training. Bring in a group of people like this, bring them in, and we'd do a mass training and teach you how to do contracts, and you're all salespeople. You knew what you were doing. You shouldn't have to teach how to sell because you already should know. And then we'd just, hey, go sell. Go on, go sell. No additional training. Just get out there and go. Well, our training consisted of somebody up there instructing. We all had our books, and it was fill in the blank. The instructor would read, well, do you know the answer to that? Well, this is the answer, and you'd fill it in, and that was it. It was pretty pathetic. Worked in the beginning because you're a entrepreneur, you're starting your company, you don't have a lot of money, so you keep things very low cost and do the best you can. But it wasn't working 30 years later. So we brought our salespeople in. We had some that kicked and screamed, I've been selling now for 30 years, you can't teach me a thing, I can't learn anything. You're just wasting my time. It's like, that's okay. I know that you are a Top Gun rep and you sell, $1.5 million every year for me, and I really appreciate it. But when I look at your sales, all you're doing is going out there being an order taker. I don't see a lot of new business coming in that you're writing. You're just selling your old contracts. Do you think that could be a problem if your best writers in the company are order takers? It's a huge problem. So we redeveloped our training. One of the things I found out when I started collecting data and looking at it and the cost of everything is, even in the old way of selling or training our people to sell for us, is it cost $75,000 to train one person. Now, think about this. We'd have a training probably every 2-3 weeks, maybe as many people as in this room. Do the fill in the blank thing and then kick you out, go sell. They were burning through contracts that they couldn't sign, even though it was revenue, it was a renewal. They should just be able to go in and say, hey, just sign. They burned that. New business leads. They'd burn through that, and pretty soon they're frustrated and they just quit. So then we'd start the process over of training again. So there was 75 grand that just walked out the door, and there goes another 75 grand. Pretty soon that all adds up. Because a lot of the material that they had tried to work, you try to give it to another sales rep. First of all, they don't want to touch somebody else's stuff because they don't know what they're walking in on. You force them to. It's like, yeah, you will. This is your packet. No, I don't want that. Yeah, you're going to take it. But a lot of it couldn't be renewed, so you just lost those customers, just slipped through the cracks. And that's where I came up with the 75, because when you look at the whole package, just not the cost of training, but everything they touched and what it cost. Well, our new training was a 2-week process. And I did make even existing sales reps go through this, kicking and screaming. There were some that took me 2 years to get them there. They kept eluding me. You know, their grandma was sick and they had to go somewhere else that week, or, you know, they had to take the baby to the doctor or whatever excuse they could come up with. It's like, okay, I'm going to get you. You know, I've got my eye on you. But sooner or later, everybody went through that training. 2-week training course. They did a lot of role playing. They learned how to fill out the contracts correctly and tried to improve their penmanship the best we could so that our production people were a little happier with us. By the time they left that class within 2 weeks, the only thing they couldn't do was produce the leads. They had that much confidence in themselves to go out and knock on those doors, whether it was a new business or not, to make those sales. Well, our sales went from about 980,000 at the time to up over 2 million a week in sales, in just making those changes. The old reps would come up and thank me. You know, I learned a lot. I'm sorry I didn't go sooner. Because what was happening is they were getting paid more commission on the new business than the renewal or revenue. They were making more money. They were happy. Those changes did a lot for our sales department. We set goals for both revenue and for new business, which was another change. Before that, it was like, okay, here's your revenue. Here's just some white cards, we called them, or new business. Use this if you have an account drop. Use one of these leads to make up that difference, or use this to help. No, this is your revenue goal. I want 10% increase on revenue, but I also want 10% on this packet of new business I gave you. Some didn't like that because it was totally different, foreign from what they had been doing for years. But it was a change we needed to do. The next thing was our finance department, and finance and I, we didn't get along a lot of the times because sales just needed everything. I mean, we have to have this stuff to make sales, and he was pretty headstrong. It's like, no, you don't. Are you really telling me that you need bold print to sell that ad? Yes, I am. The whole book needs to be large print, absolutely. If I don't get that bold print, we can't sell it. And he would tell me pretty much that I'm crazy, that you're not getting it because you didn't budget for it. Like, what are you talking about, our budgets? We've always just been able to do what we're doing. He'd have to remind me, remember Afterburners, when we all agreed to work together. Now, you sat here with your directors and with your managers, and you set a budget for each of your books. And it's my job, and you need to respect that, to hold you within that budget. So I would go back down to my office with my tail between my legs, and I'd call my manager and, well, we don't get it. It's not in your budget, so you need to figure something else out. And it's not that we didn't already know these things. It's just that we had practices that we had done for so many years that it was uncomfortable for us to change those practices. But I'm here to tell you that you need to make sure you manage that bottom line, that you manage those things, because it's the little things, the small things that'll get away from you. I mean, turning off the lights at night. There were many times we would go to the office and the whole office looked like it was the Salt Lake Airport because every light was on, and yet there was nobody in the building. So Mark and I'd go around turning off lights. It's those little things that are going to creep up and bite you. Most small businesses, and this is a statistic from the Inc. 500, which I attend every year. I just love to go there and get re-energized as an entrepreneur and learn what other entrepreneurs are doing in their businesses, is that most small businesses will fail within the first 5 years. And I'm a firm believer it's because we look at the peaks. You're the visionaries. You see, oh, here's my idea, and this is where my idea is going, and there, and there, and there. And it's the valleys that kill us, those small things that creep up. One other thing I want to talk about is you personally. To lead your company, you need to make sure that mentally you're as fit as you can be. I would encourage each of you, if you're not already, to get a great business book at least every month or every 2 months and read it. Keep your mind sharp. Keep always looking for that new change, that new idea, things that are going to help your company stay on track with what you wanted it to be. Physically, if you're heart attack material, you're not exercising or doing the things you need to do to keep yourself in shape, you're not doing your company any good. It's scary if the CEO of the company has a health issue and is in the hospital. You don't think it is, it is. It runs down through every person that you employ. What's going to happen to us? Is the company going to go under? You know, are we stable? Are we going to be okay? Pretty soon, that affects them and their work. So make sure that you're, even if it's just going out and walking around the block, get some exercise. Keep yourself physically fit and mentally fit. Financially, another trap that we fall into is it's our business. This is my money. Make sure you're paying you, but you're not taking more than what you had budgeted to be paid. Because if you're living not within your means that you had decided that you live within, you basically start stealing from yourself. That will hurt you. Don't fall victim to that. There's a lot of business owners that do. Socially, make sure that socially that you're out there in your communities doing the things that you need to do to give back. Make sure you're interacting with your friends, your families. Because if you're not, if you become a recluse and you're just so focused on business, I can guarantee you that everything else around you is going to crumble. Keep your stool in balance. Keep your life in balance. A lot of these things I've talked about, especially with this little stool thing. We've experienced ourselves. There's times that we've let our family trying to just be pushed in the background because we were so focused on the business. The kids felt neglected. It was not a good thing. Had to make those changes. Financially, yes, we lived within our budget because we didn't have any money. It all went back into the company to pay the employees. We never missed a payroll. The one part I wasn't going to bring it up, but I am spiritually. Whether you are of a denomination or not, of a faith or not, make sure you're spiritually in tune with your beliefs. Because those 5 things are personally things that you need to do to keep yourself going to run your companies in a successful manner. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for allowing me to come and share some of my thoughts. So they told me to leave time for Q&A, so I guess that's this time.
I'll start it off. I got a real important question.
Okay.
How did you manage to draw out for all 4 species of sheep?
How did I? Well, I actually, the first time I put in for Rocky Mountain Bighorn, which was up by Jackson Hole, I drew out. I don't know how I did it. My husband come home and called me a not so nice name, but he was excited I got the tag, but he had put in for it as well. So I was just lucky. 2 of the tags I purchased, and then the Utah Desert tag, ironically, we were told that we paid somebody off of the DWR because I drew my desert tag and Mark drew his desert tag the same year. So I don't know. It took me 15 years, though, to draw that tag.
Okay, that's the rest of the story.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Tony.
Have you felt as a woman you've received different trials or different valleys, I guess you would say, compared to men in a business-related field?
There have been times, yes, that I feel like I had to try harder and prove myself harder. That yes, I'm a woman. I can be VP of sales. I can handle this job and the stress that comes with it. But I'm pretty forward and pretty blunt, and so it probably wasn't as much as I made it out to be. So, does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So you being heavily involved in the Yellow Pages industry, where do you see that going now? I mean, with the online aspect, with thousands of directory websites out there trying to become the next Yellow Pages online. I don't even think Dex.com does a good job.
We were very lucky and got out at the right time. I don't think the Yellow Page book per se, is going to go away anytime soon, because there's still a lot of generations out there that will go to that book versus online. Most of the younger generation, yes, you go right to online. We have our phones that we look things up on. So we're probably a generation and a half away before the paper product goes away. So it will come. The internet, as far as the Yellow Page industry, has been around since, I would say, 1997. People trying to find the perfect product for the internet, and it's still not there, but it will come. It will come.
Would you say it was by luck that you got out at that time, or could you see where it was headed, like the direction?
It was just luck. We had actually sold our Canadian directories, and we had, at that time, knew, well, okay, we've got to revamp our company because we still have the same amount of employees that we had when we had the Canadian books, and we don't need them all. So either we start on a heavy growth plan in the US, or we do have to lay off a lot of salespeople and things of that nature. So that's when we took a hard look at our company and came up with a 5-year plan of the steps of where we're going to be. Okay, we're at this much EBITDA now. In 5 years, we're going to be here. And during that process, we were probably 2 years into it. The company that had bought our Canadian directories came to us and said, well, we want to buy the US. It's like, well, what's not for sale? We're not where we want to be if we decide to exit. And they said, that's okay, we want to buy it at your exit price. So I would say that was probably luck. And a great product. So, that answer, okay. Yeah.
During your transition process, you talked about this training and everything. After that, was it difficult to get your management directors and things on board and motivate their departments to do the same, or was it kind of a weeding out process that people that didn't really get on board kind of left, or they were asked?
The people that didn't want to get on the bus in the right seat, yes, we let them go. But a lot of the management were so excited about it because the departments were fighting so much. Like I said, sales, we ruled all, and that's just our mindset. I mean, you revolve around us. We bring it in the front door. We don't care what happens to you, but hey, we're doing it, not you. And production felt that way about sales. They get everything, we don't get anything. And finance, they're just finance. What can I say? They're so I think the management team was very hungry for a change in processes. Even though our product didn't change, it actually got better because we were able to do things that we couldn't afford before by just making some changes in the way we did business. So I think that the production employees under those managers were ecstatic about it. I actually would bring them into our sales meetings, pick out different individuals, say, come in, sit down so you can see what we're talking about. I had my sales reps all had to go in and sit at some point in the year for at least one day with a production person just to see what their life was like, what was created for them. And that had never been done before. Production people would go out and ride one day with a sales rep to see what they went through, because it's not easy. I mean, it takes a very highly motivated, egotistical person to go knock on a door and be told no, 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 and finally get a yes. And those no's, they'd count them. It's like, okay, 7, yay, next one's going to be a signed contract. I mean, they had it down to science almost. They couldn't wait for the no's because they knew when the yes would come. And production people can't handle that. They like their space, pin up the family. I can doodle on the scratch paper and do my work. And to put them in that realm, it was terrifying. And it gave them a greater appreciation for what those divas went through. So, yes.
You talked about that training program you put together and how the sales increase changed them from order takers to sales people. Were there 1 or 2 keys in that you thought really helped push them over, or is it just this extended 2-week period? Or, I don't know.
I think it was just reminding them of the sales flow. Instead of going in there, I mean, in a previous life, when I worked at a bank, one of those financial people, that was a scary time in my life, but that's okay. Salesperson came out in me. I would tell my new accounts people, I'd tell my loan managers, I'd tell my tellers, you get that person to open a savings deposit box because they're most likely not going to move their accounts if they have to go in and get all that crap out of their box and take it somewhere else. And so that's what we did. We focused on, had this whole vault of boxes. So I think it was reminding the salespeople of the sales flow. You need to find out what the needs of your customer is. Show interest in their business. And I think that was the big clue that they had forgot, because they were running, I mean, you're writing $1.5 million a year, that's a lot of contracts. And so they weren't spending a lot of time with their customers. It's just going in here, you know, great, working for you, good, here, sign up. So I think just making some tweaks with those folks helped. So is that okay with that? Oh, got one more question.
I wasn't here for the initial part. What made you first decide that you wanted to do the phone book?
Well, it wasn't me that decided that. I'm the valley person that likes to fix the things. I'm not the visionary. My husband is that, and he was looking for a phone book one day, couldn't find one, and popped in his head that, yeah, I'm going to make phone books. So he needed his own. There's a lot more to it, but anyway.
I kind of missed the first few minutes too. So what year did you start at?
1971.
And then you sold it 37 years later is what you said?
We sold it in the first book, or first part of our company, the Canadian Directories, was sold in 2005, and we signed in 2006 after we went through all the due diligence and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
So,
And then how many different places did it expand to? Like where were you guys, what were you guys covering your area?
well, we in Canada, from British Columbia clear to Halifax, so all of Canada. In the U.S. at one time, we were clear across the U.S. In the early 80s, we had to cut back, and we were just in the western states. And at the time of our sale of Canada, we started expanding out into Oklahoma, Texas, North Carolina, and started getting our footprint bigger.
So how do you start from scratch? Like that's like how many contracts do you have? Like each city probably tons and tons of contracts with different, people trying to market a product or a service in your phone book, and how that sounds like mind-boggling, overwhelming. Like how did you say, okay, here's what we're gonna do? We're just gonna go to every single business and start knocking on
You just start knocking on doors. We did a lot of research, and I didn't mention this because our time was limited here, and there's a lot more that I haven't said, but what I did was create a library, because you've got to have a structure. I mean, Salt Lake City was the last market that we went into in the state of Utah, and the reason being, it was a huge, huge project. So we made sure it was surrounded by a support system of other books. So your sales reps wouldn't starve. They could go up into Park City and sell into that book, or go into Davis County. So there were things for them to do while they were selling. In our library, we did the same things. If we started a book somewhere, we made sure that there would be other books around that area that we could start to support each other. So
What were the books called?
our company,
Yeah.
initially it was called Phone Directories Company. I later changed the name to an anagram, to PDC, because we did have people that were leaving our company and starting their own companies, and they'd go in and they'd been former sales reps. Well, I'm with the phone directory. They wouldn't say company, so they weren't really crossing the line of misrepresenting themselves. So I started training the reps to say, I'm with PDC. So that's what it ended up being, was PDC. So, Mr. Bingham.
We sold the Canadian company, I just mentioned it, there's builders, and what most of you people would probably do to get out there and start this building company, and that's that mod situation you go through. There's other people that's maintainers, but they don't have a startup company, it's completely two different things. We sold our company, like 4 years ago, I think in Canada, we sold it for $81 million in Canada. Yesterday, HM Capital sold that. If you want to look at the SIP local, YPG group, they sold it for $225 million. They do it that much.
So.
3 or 4 years.
So your ideas can go from good to great, but manage that small stuff. Thank you so much for having me.